Welcome to Salvador. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to talk about the export, also known as the standing rib roast, also known as the ribeye roast. We're also going to talk about the different cuts, ends, cooking methods, resting, and how to enjoy this roast. The first thing you want to think about when you're ordering an export roast is that there are 7 bones. A lot of the times people will say, how do I order? We actually recommend you order per bone. So you order 1 bone, that's going to feed 2 people. If you order 2 bones, that's going to feed 4 people. But you have to be mindful because some bones are a little longer than the others. When you're talking about your shoulder section, you're actually going to find that it's a smaller little rib. It's about 1.25 inches versus the loin end, which is about 2 inches to 2.5 inches. So you want to make sure that you actually order accordingly. You can also recommend and say, hey, I'm cooking for 6 people. What would you recommend to your butcher? And they will make sure they prep it accordingly. Now, a couple cool things about the ribeye roast is we actually have various muscles in here. We're actually going to portion this and cut it in half so you can see. I'm going to do a 3 rib roast and a 4 rib roast. There are actually 7 ribs in the export. So if you're ordering for a bigger party, 7 ribs is really a good quantity. You're feeding around 18 to 25 people, depending on how much they eat. Now, when you cut the ribeye roast, you actually just go between the actual rib. Now, if you look here, you're actually going to see the 3 muscles of the actual ribeye. You're going to see the spinalis dorsi, which is this outer meat area. We also call it the rib cap. You're going to see 2 muscles here, one being the longissimus dorsi, one being the complexus dorsi. And then you have what we call tail fat here, a little bit of kernel fat. Now these little specks of fat are called intramuscular fat, or intra with an A, intramuscular fat. And then you have intermuscular fat, and that's normally the fat that goes around the muscles. You want good quality intramuscular fat. That is actually what makes prime the grading of the actual level of intramuscular fat, the maturity of the animal as well. Now, I'll be honest, there's only 2% of prime in the country. We only sell our prime rib roast, and the grading is actually USDA prime. So I have my 3 rib roast here. And you can see smaller section here. This roast weighs about 8 pounds. Some people will want to trim it. Trimming it's fine. What I'll say is this, you can always trim the fat after it's actually been cooked. If you're worrying about fat and it's too fatty to eat, you cook this beautiful roast, the fat is going to protect the actual ribeye, and then you're able to achieve a nice moist ribeye, but also all that fat that renders off, you're also able to achieve things like Yorkshire pudding, a nice beef gravy, and things of that nature. So don't be afraid of fat. It is really nice to have, and it is really good quality, and that's what makes it prime, so don't be afraid of it at all. Now we have our little 4 rib roast, and the cool part about our 4 rib roast, it's bigger. You can see, like I said, depending on where you're ordering from, what side of the loin, you want to just be very detail in your ordering. You want to say, okay, I'm feeding 6 people, I would like 3 ribs. So when we're actually measuring this, we know, okay, feeding 6 people, we can portion it accordingly. Now, you can always speak with the butcher, call the shop. I'd recommend you go to our website, salvadorsmarket.com. There's a lot of details on there about ordering. There's also a lot of recipes that are helpful for actually cooking a ribeye roast. But there are some cool parts about ribeye you should think about when you're actually cooking. And the most common thing is the tempering of the meat. Now what that means is simply to let the meat sit at room temperature. That's going to allow the meat to take heat on a lot easier. It's also going to allow the meat to cook a lot more evenly. It also, very important, is actually the resting of it. So when you rest the actual ribeye, you're going to allow those juices to kind of redistribute throughout the meat. It's not going to bleed all over the plate. But here's a trick when you're roasting a ribeye roast. It's much bigger. 8 pounds versus really a 10-pound roast. You're going to find that if you cooked it for 3 hours, it's going to take about 1 hour to 1.5 hours to rest. What does that mean for you? Well, you want to eat dinner at 5, it's 3 o'clock, you pull the roast out, let it sit to 4:30. Do not be afraid to let it get cold. Just sit it on your countertop, room temperature, because you can always flash it back in the oven for 20 minutes, get a nice hot exterior, and then still achieve a nice rested period of time where the meat won't bleed out. Now, beyond that, when the meat's relaxing and you're having fun, enjoy it. You've got the nice roast that's already been cooked, you've bought good quality, you've got good company coming by, so we hope that you enjoy your roast. We're always here to help. Leave comments below. We look forward to seeing you in the shop.